level 3, okay, April 1st. I am wearing our sample logo for our 2022 fundraiser. This is the logo for 2022, Love Needs No Words. We got the heartbeat, which I absolutely love, and then it obviously says Autism Awareness 2022 on here. Hey Levada, hey Lenzo. So this is our 6th, hey Gretchen, hi Julie, our 6th fundraiser, annual fundraiser, our 6th year doing this, I should say. So this live doesn't have any selling yet. Hey Kelly. It does first start with our experience with autism with Dante, our son Dante. He's going to be 10 this year. The first time that I did this, it was just before his 5th birthday, I believe. So he's going to be 10 next month, which is insane. So I'm just gonna start with our story. Quick story. My story basically goes till he's about 4, because that's when I started with Lula, and then we end it with the fundraiser details. I'm just gonna start with Dante's story, which is our family story. So he was born May 14th, 2012. It was actually on our 1-year anniversary, which is insane. And everything was totally what they would consider normal and fine. You know, he was maybe like 2 weeks early, but nothing like out of the ordinary for his delivery. So his development was going what they would consider typical at all his checkups. So, you know, we had like a 6-month one, then you do the 9-month list. When you go to the 9-month one, everything was fine. He was trying to say his name at around Angelina's age now, so 10 months to a year. He was, you know, like trying to say some words. And then we went to his 18-month checkup, and he wasn't really talking. He was doing a lot of babbling, but he was our first, so I didn't think anything of it. I thought 18 months was a little young for anyone to be talking, so I didn't know. So the pediatrician referred him for speech therapy, and I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I was like, are you kidding me? He's 18 months old. This is insane. So I ignored it for a couple of months, and I was like, I'm not doing it. And everybody's like, oh, he's fine. You know, he's delayed. He'll talk when he's ready. So I didn't do anything for a couple months. And of course, I made the mistake of Googling 18-month speech therapy, and all this stuff on autism came up. And I was like, what? And I knew nothing really about autism other than like what you see on TV. Like, I was not educated at all when it came to autism. So I started reading all this. I'm like, absolutely not. He is not autistic. This is ridiculous. Like, I was actually very angry just reading all the things. So around 20 months though, I was like, we talked to a lot of people, and they're like, well, it's not gonna hurt him. Like, basically somebody comes to the house and they play with him. It's gonna be fun. So why don't you just put him in for speech therapy? And I was like, all right, well, yeah, I mean, I guess best case scenario, he just starts talking, so whatever. So we signed him up. So he started that at 20 months. That was when I started learning about early intervention and all these other services. So as some of you may know that are familiar with the process, as soon as we got into the speech therapy, all the other evaluations came to follow. So now the speech therapist is like, I want to refer him for an OT evaluation, and I want to refer him for a PT evaluation, and I want to refer him for teacher services. And I'm like, what? I'm like, he's not even 2. Like, I don't even understand what's going on right now. We still strongly felt that he was not autistic, and that he would just wake up one day and start talking, because that's what a lot of people were telling us. So I said, fine, go ahead and do the evaluations. Again, what's the worst that can happen? Somebody's gonna come to the house, they're gonna play with him, they'll just help him with his fine motor skills and whatever, like no big deal. So now he's like going on to being 2.5, and he's got like 4 services. So he's doing speech therapy, OT, PT, and teacher services. It wasn't doing anything for him at the house. Like, I saw 0 improvement, and he had started in, I think it was January or February, and now we're like into the fall. So he had been doing it for about 6 months, and I'm like, okay. So I asked them if there was anything else that maybe he could go into that would benefit him more. And then they said, well, when they have multiple services, they can qualify for a program where they go to a facility for like 2 days a week for 2.5 hours, and they work on all their services there. And I'm like, okay, well, great, that sounds good. Like, maybe he will do better in not being home. So we signed him up for services at 2.5, and now he still isn't talking. his eye contact kind of started to diminish. We noticed that he wasn't looking at us as much as he was when he was, you know, like a baby or even 18 months. We would call his name multiple times. He kind of stopped responding to it. So now we're starting to be like, all right, like maybe there is something going on. And we were just kind of not seeing it or in denial or just not educated because he was our first. So I put him in this program. It was Liberty Post on James Street. They were amazing. Like, I loved it. They offered to bus him at a young age, but I said no. I drove him, and now I'm pregnant for Juliana at the time. So I was driving him there a couple days a week. My mom was helping out because I was sick with Juliana being pregnant. So as I'm going there, I'm seeing the other kids in the classroom, and some of the behaviors are kind of similar. So I'm like, okay, like I thought it was typical or normal, the things that he did, but like seeing these other kids, I'm like, well, maybe this is not like a normal thing. So of course I start asking the therapists, and they were being, you know, they can only do what they can do or say what they can say. So they're trying to be like, well, it could go either way, like we're not really sure, you know. So now I'm starting to get really like scared, you know, like what is this gonna mean for Dante's future, because we didn't still really know much about it. So as he's starting to phase out of early intervention, he's starting to approach 3. They wanted to do the full evaluation, like for the diagnostic testing. So they referred him for that. It was just before his 3rd birthday. I think it was at some point like in March of the year that he turned 3. He turned 3 in May. And it was like a 6-hour evaluation. It was crazy. At the time we went to Margaret Williams. I don't even know if they're around anymore in Syracuse, but it was like a very horrible experience for us. They were supposed to do 1 child at a time, I guess, but there was another child there. So some of the therapists never even got to see Dante. They just went off of like checklists, and it just was really like, I felt like it was kind of cold, and I just felt like they were checking a box. So we get into a room after the 6 hours, and a doctor comes in, and now knowing that the doctor has to make the diagnosis at the time, you know, we don't really know much. So an actual doctor comes in, and he sits down, and he actually says to us, Mr. and Mrs. Schaefer, like, this is the worst possible news that you can get, but your son has autism. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, it's absolutely not the worst possible news we could get, because he made it sound like it was like a death sentence. And so I'm all of a sudden like, oh my God, like, this is horrible. Like, if we have a doctor that's telling us this is the worst thing that we could possibly hear, like, what does this mean? Like, what happens now? He's not even 3 years old. Like, I'm pregnant with Juliana. So he literally also says to me, he follows that up with, I see that you're pregnant. Are you having a boy or a girl? And I said, I'm having a girl. And he said, oh, if it makes you feel better, girls are less likely to be autistic. So I'm sure she's fine. I'm not even kidding you. This is exactly how it went down. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, this is this is horrible. So I left there in tears, of course. Like, I was just hysterical. Like, I'm, you know, texting my family, like, acting like this is it. Dante's life is over, because that's pretty much how I felt. I just felt like they were acting like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. So, we didn't tell anyone other than immediate family. So now he's 3 in that May, and nobody really knows except for like my parents, like, you know, literally the closest people to me. Nobody had any idea. On Facebook, of course, he looked like a totally normal, typical 3-year-old, because that's the life that we wanted everybody to believe that we were living, but we weren't living that life at all. We were living a very scared, uncertain, and a life, and it was just full of doctor's appointments and therapies and evaluations, and it just felt like I just felt very like alone in it, because we didn't know anybody that had any child on the spectrum at that time in my life. I knew not a single soul that had a child with autism. So I thought he was the only person like in the world, and this was horrible. So we didn't tell anybody. I never went back to work after this. So I had like a 6-year career prior to having Dante. Obviously now I'm like, well, this is my life. I'm not going back to work. It's going to be consumed with these therapies and his diagnosis. And forget even thinking about Juliana, being pregnant with her, because that was just like on the back burner, because now I'm trying to emotionally accept and deal with all this that's going on. So I stopped working. In the fall of 2015, so that following fall, he had started Main Street. So the preschool program, he went 5 days a week, all full time, and he started doing like amazing. You know, like he would go into school, he didn't have a one-to-one, he would hang up his backpack, he would go wash his hands. So he still wasn't talking at this point, but he was following direction, which was a lot more than what he was doing up to that point. So we knew he was comprehending, you know, like 1-step, maybe 2-step commands, you know, go hang up your backpack and go wash your hands. So that's where he was at about 3.5. So 3.5, that was his level of like understanding. So he was doing great. So we thought, come the following spring, when they do the re-evaluation going into actual preschool, because now he turned 4, Main Street told us they could no longer support him and he couldn't go there anymore. So I was devastated. I'm like, I don't understand why he can't go here. Like, he's doing great. And they're like, we don't have the support that he needs, which I also didn't understand at the time, because I'm like, what support could he possibly need that he doesn't already have right now? So they basically kicked us out of Main Street and they gave us options, and they said he has to have a 1-to-1. And again, at the time, I had no idea what that meant. So I'm like, what is a 1-to-1? And they're like, he needs like an aide with him at all times throughout the whole day of school. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. He has never had that. He doesn't need that. He's doing fine. And still at that point, even now, all these years later, I still don't feel that that was true at that time, that he needed a 1-to-1. But that's what they told me, so I believed it. So I started doing all of the, like researching all these programs that were in Syracuse and trying to figure out where he could go. We were getting turned down by all these places because they didn't have any openings for 1-to-1, because we went to Juwonio, which was like the Cadillac of preschools. Like, the place was amazing. But they turned us away because his IEP said he needed a 1-to-1, and they're like, we only have 2 to 3 1-to-1 spots per classroom, and they're all filled, and they had like a 1-year wait list. So I was like, well, where is he supposed to go? So we stumbled across Exploring Your World, which was on Court Street, and it closed last year. Last year was their last year. I was so sad. We did donate to them last year before they closed, but they are officially closed, and he went there. So we walked in there. The place was like a smaller version of kind of like Main Street was. So he goes there, like it was the first year since we started since he was 18 months old, where it just felt like, you know, we weren't getting calls all the time, just felt like relief, you know. It was like, all right, he gets on the bus, he goes to school, he comes home, we're getting great reviews, he's improving, you know, the staff was amazing, the teachers loved him, everything was great. So it was like a blessing in disguise. So in the middle of all of this going on, I just started shopping. Like, my cousin got me a pair of black leggings, and LuLaRoe just kind of popped up in my life, and I was home, obviously, doing things with Dante, and Juliana was a baby. So I started kind of watching LuLaRoe as like an escape and shopping it. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that. I would hop on lives, I would kind of get into their world, and I would shop their stuff, and that was my like little kind of break from life. While I had chaos going around behind me. So when I started getting all of their stuff in, I figured this was around, I think, July of 2016, because it'll be 6 years this year in July. I put myself in the queue because I figured I need something for me, because it was getting to just be too much on my like emotional state, and I felt like I wasn't being the best mom I could be, because everything was just so angry, you know, like I was just angry at everything. I was angry at the world. I was angry at the system. I was angry at the teachers. I just was so angry. I just felt like I never had anybody to talk to. And still at this point, we had not told people outside of immediate family, Facebook world, he was still perfectly normal. And I knew nobody still that had a child on the spectrum, because I did not open up myself to any type of community. I was just like, no. So I put myself in the queue, and while I was in the queue, he went in to get tubes because he had like 11 ear infections in like a 2-month period. And they're like, let's put some tubes in. And they're like, and good news is he had an amazing ENT. And she was like, great news is sometimes if we put tubes in, that could also be affecting their speech therapy, because maybe he's not able to hear clearly, and that could help his speech. So I'm thinking, I'm still holding on to every little scrap of hope, and I'm thinking, you know what, maybe they're gonna put these tubes in and he's just gonna magically start talking and everything's gonna be fine. So he still wasn't talking, so they put the tubes in for the ear infections. I get him home that night, and this is always the part of the lie, you guys, that gets me. You would think after 6 years I would be able to tell this without getting emotional. I can do it. I can do it. Oh my God. So, put him to bed that night. Hang on. I tuck him in like I normally do. And I said, I love you, Dante. And he looked up at me. My God. For the first time. And said, I love you, Mommy. And that was it. It was like, I lost it. It was like all of the weight of what his future was gonna be like had kind of lifted. Because I didn't know if he was ever gonna say anything. I didn't know if he was ever gonna tell me he loved me. If he was ever gonna say Mommy. At that moment, I felt like he is aware of what's going on. Like he's hearing me. He's listening to us. He's there. And I just felt like there was hope, you know? There was hope that I was going to be able to talk to my son someday, you know, have maybe a little conversation with him, or know that he can tell me that he loves me. Because you always assume, you know, that your kids love you, but I think sometimes you take for granted when they can tell you, or you can tell them all the time. But when you don't ever hear it, and you don't even hear Mommy, it's like heart-wrenching. So now I'm just started with Lula, and I've just got so much going on, like emotionally, that this was my escape. You know, Lula was my, like, I would go down at night, I would go live. I felt like I had people to talk to for like the first time in over 4 years. I just felt like I had a community, even though at the time nobody knew yet. So come like, I think it was October, I think I have the date here. It was like October, October, those puzzle piece, and I forgot my puzzle piece leggings. They're like in a shrine, basically, in my room. Those, thanks, David. Those puzzle piece leggings, I usually have them down here with me, but I left them upstairs. The infamous puzzle piece leggings. I feel like most of you guys know what I'm talking about. I saw those on some retailers, like, I don't know, like her page or something, that they were going to be in their live one night. And I'm like, what are these? I need these in my life. This is amazing. So now this is what I'm really understanding too, like the other end of it, like the shopper versus like the retailer portion of it. Of at the time, if those of you that didn't shop Lula in 2016, if there was a print, the odds of you getting that print or getting a duplicate of something was almost non-existent. What they did was they used to make 5,000 pieces. They still do, but there's a lot less retailers. They used to make 5,000 pieces of one print, and that was it. And it was distributed among, at the time, we had like 100,000 retailers. So there was no getting two of anything in your box, or even finding somebody who had something that you wanted. So I find these leggings, I sit on this girl's live, I'm not even kidding you, it was 3 hours. 3 hours, and she saved them for at the very, very end. It was the last thing that she showed after 3 hours. And of course, I had no chance in hell on getting them, and I didn't. So I'm like all upset, and I'm looking for them, and I'm telling my neighbors who knew Dante about the leggings. And they were really good friends of mine. They still are, I mean, even though we moved. But she decides to have her husband and her sister go on a hunt, Lula hunt, for these leggings. And again, back in 2016, a Lula hunt, you're talking hours, days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months to look for something. Also at the time, if you found something and it was what they considered a unicorn, you used to have to spend like $150 in an outfit to get a pair of $25 leggings. So long story short, she calls me over to her house one night, and her husband give me these leggings. They had found them for me. And she had to buy it in like an outfit with a Sarah and something else. It was, and everybody know, back then, the Sarah was a $70 cardigan that we had, the leggings were $25, and then it had a shirt. And of course it was like a fugly outfit that had the leggings in it. So they spent well over $100 just to get me these leggings. So she hands them to me, and I start bawling, of course. And I'm just crying, and all this emotion just came forward of like, I cannot believe that you got yourself, your husband, and her sister, who I didn't even at the time know, to go on this like search for me to find me a pair of leggings just because she knew how emotional they were for me. So I'm like, this isn't like going to Target and buying something off the rack. This is like something totally different. So I'm like, this is a community, this is like a group of friends. So now I'm like, I'm relying on my group, and I decide to post a very small post with the leggings and a quick story. Little blurb about Dante being on the spectrum. I was still not ready to like totally put it all out there. And the response that I got from everybody in the group, the private messages, the late night talks that went on till 2 o'clock in the morning for hours, of people that I had never personally met face to face that were there for me, supporting me. Like, it was so overwhelming, but at the same time, I didn't feel alone anymore. I felt like there were so many people in the group that had kids, siblings, nieces, nephews, that fostered children, that adopted children, that had brothers, sisters, aunts, I mean, all on the spectrum. And I was like, oh my God, this world is so big that when I felt so small and insignificant in it, I all of a sudden felt stronger. I felt like I was able to reach out, and I was able to get that support that I needed and fight for Dante like I needed to fight for him, because I knew that this was going to be a long fight for the rest of my life. Until I stop breathing, I'm going to have to fight for him. And I can't tell you, and a lot of you know, how many of you I've reached out to over the last at least 5 years, asking for advice, asking for support, asking for help. And you guys have been there for me at the drop of a hat. And I knew at that moment that there was no way that I just saw this as selling clothes. Like, it was so much more than me just selling a shirt, putting it in a bag, shipping it out, never seeing you again. Is nothing like that. And as you guys know, there's a lot of you in here that have been with me the entire time, that I have never even met face to face. But yeah, I feel like I'm closer with you than I am some people that I have been friends with for years. So I totally got off track, obviously. But so in April, that first April, so 2017, I had only been selling Lula since 2000, so not even a year. We did our first fundraiser. So when we did that fundraiser in 2017, and I did that live, and I had a flooding of just people coming from everywhere, whether it was on the live, it was from YouTube, it was from the CNY ASA, which is that's the organization that we go through. They had posted the video, the group, the messages, the gifts. I had you guys sending me like autism awareness necklaces, outfits, bracelets, earrings. I mean, it was like, I remember at one point getting one of the many gifts that you guys have sent me over the years, but my first year, and being like, is this real? Like, are these people real people? Because I couldn't believe the generosity, the understanding, the support, and again, how many people were affected when I thought I was the only one. That first fundraiser, the very first one, I hadn't even been doing Lula for a year. We just did leggings. It did nothing else. It was just, you purchase a pair of leggings, I donate a pair of leggings. Nothing crazy. We did 140 pairs of leggings the first year, which to me, amazing. Like, it's thousands of dollars in leggings that we donated to kids. We did the walk. CNY ASA does a walk every year on Onondaga Lake Park. They were handed out there. And I thought, you know what, I need to do this every year, because it was so rewarding in so many ways. Not just so much of the giving back, but rewarding of giving the support that I know a lot of people that were just starting out with their children, who were in the position that I was in a couple years prior to that, but also getting support for people who had adult children that were on the spectrum that could come to me and say, my son's 34. You know, and he's living a fulfilled life. Because I think a lot of you can understand, and that the biggest fear, I think, with autism is the unknown. You know, like, and there's still a lot of unknown with Dante. But it's not a diagnosis where it's cut and dry, where it's, this is what your child has, this is our plan, these are the potential outcomes. It's, this is what your child has, and here is your roadmap, and you just follow it. And they all lead to different places, and you just have to keep hoping and keep fighting and keep doing what you feel is best, no matter what anybody tells you. So I also want to mention that in the first 5 years of doing this fundraiser, you guys have helped me donate over 850 pairs of leggings, which is $10,768 in leggings to children on the spectrum. And some people might say, why leggings? With Dante, very early on, when I started selling Lula, he loved the leggings. He would rub them, you know, he had some sensory things. It's just something that's was very comfortable for him. And then come to find out, he wasn't the only one that had felt that way. I had gotten, after the first fundraiser, when we handed them out, I got a lot of messages from moms that would tell me how much the leggings had helped their children who had sensory issues. And they couldn't wear anything else except for like these leggings. So we stuck with the leggings for that reason of how I think it makes them feel and how they're comfortable. So that's why we do leggings for the children. But also the last 3 years, we have custom made 345 tops, you guys, with our logos. So 345 shirts right now are out there floating around somewhere being worn and giving awareness and showing support. And that makes me so happy, because it's not just here, it's all over the country. So there's people all over the country that are wearing these custom made shirts, 345 of them actually, which makes me so proud, you know, that so many people are supporting in the autism awareness and wearing it with pride. Like, I just can't even tell you how happy that makes me. The biggest thing that I can take away and give to you guys about the last 8 years, basically, since we started this journey, is to never question your gut. Always go with your instinct. Always fight for your child, even if you feel nobody else is fighting for them. Because I can tell you, a lot of the times, you are the only one fighting. And although you may feel like you're alone, you're not. As hard as it is for you, just know it's just as hard for somebody else out there going through the same thing. and living that same type of uncertain life. But you have to do what you feel is best, no matter what anybody tells you. So that is my strongest, biggest takeaway from all of the stuff we've gone through. I feel that he goes to school and he's loved, and he's taken care of, and he's happy. So that's the best I can ask for as a mom right now, is that he's loved, supported, and happy. And he is. So that's our first half of Dante's life story, which is in the description of this video. There is a link. It will send you to our Google form that we use every year, and in that link you can either order a pair of mystery leggings for yourself. And guys, I will order leggings, don't worry. It will not be the same leggings that we've had here for the last several months. I am gonna order leggings. So you can order a pair of mystery leggings for yourself. Every pair of leggings that you order for yourself, we donate a pair of leggings. You can donate a pair of leggings if you just don't want to, you're not a leggings person, you can donate a pair of leggings and just fill that out and send it on. Or you can order a mystery tank top. They are Lula tank tops, so there are regular tank tops. They're all gonna be Sellas. The color is mystery because I do have to order them after the fundraiser closes. And I basically just go out to all my retailer friends and say, hey, I need X amount of these sizes. Who has them? And then they send them to me. So the color is mystery, but you can order also a mystery tank, and same thing, every mystery tank that you order, you will donate, we will donate a pair of leggings for your order. So all of the details, very description is in the link for the Google form if you want to do leggings for yourself, donate a pair of leggings, or order a mystery tank with the logo. The fundraiser runs through the 7th, so everything will most likely ship this following week, probably like the 14th or 15th of April, so we can get them to you before the end of the month. You're the best. This is probably the only place I would ever feel comfortable even talking about this, is in this group after all of this time. So I love every single person in here. Every single person who's ever reached out to me and offered me support in any way has not gone unnoticed and has been a huge benefit in Dante's life. And I mean everybody. I've messaged people about questions about IEPs, like anything that you've ever given me, I have taken it, I've applied it, and it's helped Dante, which in turn has helped our family. So thank you guys. I love you. You're the best. Thank you so much.